So if you're a teenager, or if you have teenage kids, or if you've ever been a teenager, you will know that it is a really weird, tough part of life where your body's going through loads of changes. You've got all these skin issues and health issues and different things going on. And what would you do right now? You'd probably search on YouTube, TikTok, one of these social media platforms for the answer. Some of those are regulated to an extent, at least internally. Things like YouTube have got the health shelf where priority content's going up, so you know that what you're getting is accurate. But things like TikTok really aren't. And in a world where it's so easy for teenagers to basically search on TikTok for something to do with their health, get fed user-generated content that is completely incorrect, it is a really tough world, I think, for teenagers right now. My guest today is the founder of a company called Luna. And Luna, reading from their website, is a safe space for teens to learn new things, ask questions, and track how they feel. Because health and well-being aren't always taught or talked about, or certainly not in the right way. And that's the problem that they solve. And so it's an app that sits on your phone. You go into it, you've got lots of content on there that is TikTok style, but actually accurate and written by medics, written by experts, whether that's psychology, whether that's physical health, all of those different things. It's actually combating all of that misinformation and delivering exactly what people want and what they need. Their user reviews are insanely good. Like, it is awesome what this is doing for teenagers' lives. And I think, honestly, the world in general, I think this is the sort of thing that you could see would be applicable to every teenager on earth, would be in every language on earth, and basically empowers those teenagers to learn about their health, learn about themselves, and be engaged with digital health in a positive way. They can start to track things, they can start to understand things, and essentially the goal for Luna is to become this trusted brand in a world of information all over the place. Can you set yourself up as a trusted brand so that every teenager on earth can look to you when they actually have a health question, and they can ask it anonymously, they can get an answer, and everyone can see those answers? And so it's a community where everyone can learn. I think it's an incredibly noble thing to do. It's a really interesting company. And Jo is ex-Deloitte, did an MBA at Oxford, certainly knows a thing or two around business. But yeah, first foray into true entrepreneurship. So yeah, certainly not doing badly for a first go. Yeah, I hope you enjoy this one, guys. Also, Jo, welcome to the Healthtech Podcast. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. And thank you very much for having me.
You are very welcome. You're very welcome. Looking forward to having you on. This is going to be relatively unique in that teen health is not something that was definitely something I've not covered on this podcast. And it's not the most common type of startup that you see, particularly in digital health. So very much looking forward to getting into this with you. And obviously you yourself have got an interesting background from Deloitte to everything you're doing now and everything in between. So yeah, looking forward to this one, Jo. And the way we start these is for you to tell your story. So let's just get into it. Yeah, what makes you you, and how do you get to being the founder of Luna and doing everything that you're up to now?
Sure, happy to share that. So I was originally from Yorkshire. I was brought up on a farm, so very much a outdoorsy type person. Yeah, so actually living in London is very different to farm life in Yorkshire. I did young enterprise actually at school. So we were in sixth form, and it was one of those ones where you had a year to kind of put a business together. And I loved that. I really enjoyed it. We actually took our team to the national finals. So we were in the top 12 companies in the UK for our year, which was awesome. And we got to meet Jason Robinson, of all people. He was like at the ceremony presenting the awards. Excellent. Not really sure why, but great day, great night out. And yeah, I think that sparked something in me that I thought, one day I want to have my own business properly and run a business as such. But went off to university, went to Exeter University, and again, didn't really have a specific thing in mind that I wanted to do. I was not really like I want to be a doctor or I want to be a dentist or anything like that. So I did a business and management degree because I thought, young enterprise, and it's a bit sort of catch-all. You do a bit of accounting, a bit of marketing, a bit of sales, all that kind of thing. And had a great 3 years there, learnt a lot, but also left at the end of it thinking, I still don't really know what I want to do. Do I want to go into finance? Do I want to go into marketing? So applied to a few different grad schemes and actually ended up at Deloitte on their management consulting grad scheme, and specifically within the finance sector, essentially. So joined Deloitte in 2012. Yeah, gosh, 2012 now. And had, 5 really, really good years there. It really did teach me a lot of the sort of, I suppose, the grounding that you need in terms of setting up a business, because as a management consultant, you kind of get helicoptered into various different businesses, work on projects for a set amount of time. So for me, it was anywhere between sort of 6 months to 18 months was one of my longest projects, because I was doing lots of finance transformation is what they called. So you'd work with essentially the CFO and their team in that business, whichever one you were in. So I got exposed to lots of different businesses, from everything to the Ministry of Defence here in London and in Bristol, to Rolls-Royce up in Derby.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, I lived in Derby in a Holiday Inn for 18 months.
Oh,
I was sold the project. It was going to be, it was going to be 3 months and that's it. And I thought I can do 3 months in a Holiday Inn, but it was 18 months. So I have lifetime gold status or something there now from all of those points,
excellent.
Which is a perk of the job.
I did med school in Nottingham, so I actually spent time in Derby at the Derby Royal Infirmary, the hospital there. So I probably know the Holiday Inn that you're talking about, actually.
Yeah, it's the one right in the centre, literally slap bang in the centre. It's near the Pure Gym. That was about the only other place I visited.
Nice.
So spent 5 years at Deloitte. I actually trained as a management accountant with them. So I did 3 years. So I left uni thinking, I'm done with exams, whoopie-doo. And then I did 3 more years of exams, doing the SEMA management accounting qualification. So I think at the time I thought, that will give me a good, really good understanding and grasp of finance and how numbers work, etc. And obviously Deloitte supported us through that, which was great. And yeah, after 5 years, I was on the verge of do I stay? And is this me for life now? Am I going to be a Deloitte partner? Or do I want to go and do something different? And for me, obviously, it was the do something different route. And what that turned out to be, I actually went to work for Johnny Bowden, who is the entrepreneur who's behind the fashion retailer and fashion brand Bowden. So it was a really interesting time. They'd just brought in a new CEO, and I got to work with her and her sort of C-suite team, and really sort of went from a massive, massive corporation that is Deloitte to obviously a much smaller one, but still, much bigger than Luna is right now. So, at the time there was about 500 people at Bowden. And yeah, I had a really great 2 years. It felt very different to Deloitte, but it was very much working in sort of strategy and working out how we're going to launch new big projects and things like that. So yeah, I had a great time. And I left Bowden just pre-COVID. I feel like I preempted COVID in the fact that it was December 2019. And I actually went back to my parents in Yorkshire, which obviously was a godsend when COVID came along a few months later, because they had the farm to be outside on and stuff like that. So that was a weird, a weird thing that happened in the universe, I feel where I was just I have to go back to Yorkshire. And I went back. Yeah, I went back because I decided that, I'd again kind of got to the point with Bowden where I was I want to do something different. And this was where I really thought I wanted to do something more entrepreneurial. And so I actually applied to go back to university. So I went back to Oxford University in September 2020. So right in the pandemic, actually. It was the pandemic year, but it was to do an MBA, so kind of a business degree on steroids for the year.
Mm-hmm.
And I met an amazing, cohort of people there, and we really had a great year despite sort of COVID. And yeah, one of the best things that came out of it was I met, one of my best friends, Jazz, who is also now my co-founder, and we started Luna. So the idea for Luna came about on the MBA, because one of the modules that you have to do is called the Entrepreneurship Project. So I describe it as a bit like a cross between Dragon's Den meets The Apprentice. So it's like the bit of The Apprentice where they all run around like headless chickens being like, what are we going to do? What business are we going to do? And then at the end of term, we had to pitch this business idea to a panel of investors. So like Dragon's Den style. And they were real investors from real VCs, real angel investors. And we pitched this idea for Luna. It's massively evolved since then, but the concept was pretty much the same. And they were actually on the panel, the angels and the VCs that turned around and said, this is actually a really good idea. Like, we see pitch decks all the time, but this is really interesting. Is anyone going to take it forward? And this was in May 2021. And I think that was where it sort of gave me the inkling that actually maybe there's something in this. Maybe this is the idea that I've been waiting for, probably since Young Enterprise, but, never had another idea that I was sort of had that kind of, passion for, but also the kind of external belief from someone else that it is possible to do. So over the summer of 2021, just before we graduated, I convinced Jazz that this was something we needed to do. And she was fully on board. And we started, Luna, we incorporated in 1st of September 2021. So coming up to 2 years now. And we basically graduated in the October and pretty much set to work straight away, just the two of us. And a £20,000 grant actually that we won, which in all honesty, I don't know if we hadn't have won that grant back then, whether we actually would have taken the plunge. Because obviously it's one thing for an investor to say, oh, this is a great idea. But it was like actually another thing to be like, well, how are we going to do this? Like, we've just spent an awful lot of money on business school fees. We could walk out of here with very nice salaries, like all of our friends were doing. They were all getting amazing jobs. Yeah, it was a bit like, how are we actually going to fund this? And so again, another sort of blessing from the universe that this sort of £20,000 grant kind of kicked us off and allowed us to really go out and give it a go. And here we are now, sort of 2 years later, with a team of 7.5, shall we say. Nice. And an app on the App Store that's been app of the day twice already.
Wow. What an incredible story. And that's lovely to hear. Your background's really interesting because it seems like you've been this kind of business generalist like the whole time. And then you had this period of working really close with the C-suite, Johnny Bowden, and being really close to the action, I guess, in a smaller company, which is sort of, I guess, giving you confidence and giving you learning of being closer to the founder, the CEO, that kind of thing. But yeah, it seems like you've really learned like the first principles of business there to then apply it to something in something completely different, right? Like, it seems like your journey through Deloitte and through finance and through Bowden and doing an MBA and all that stuff is like you've amassed this kind of very general but very broad knowledge of business that you can then wait for like that spark. And you talked about like ideas needing to be passion and needing to also be practicality of like, is it going to work? And I guess having that broad base of knowledge of business overall means that you can, I suppose, wait for the idea and wait for that perfect thing to come along. Or, well, it's never perfect, is it? But yeah, that is quite interesting if you'd agree.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, maybe looking back, that was kind of sort of subconsciously my plan all along in terms of, I don't know, like you say, collecting all of these quite very valuable experiences for someone who wants to set up a business, because I think really along the way I've definitely learned so much, even just from things like at Deloitte. It was drilled into everyone, especially at the analyst level, about how to make slide decks look really good and interesting. And I think at the time we just sort of took it for granted, but actually when you leave and you see people that create slide decks that perhaps haven't been through that kind of sort of very intense training, it really does show. And we both, Jazz and I, were Deloitte consultants, weirdly at the same time, but we never actually met whilst we were there. But yeah, so we had, I think we got really great training, especially to the analyst program, which sort of lasts 2 years at Deloitte, into everything from building slideshows, presentations, but to like Excel modeling as well. And all of these have come in handy. As you're starting a business, you have to model out your sort of costs and revenues and things like that. And putting a pitch deck together, for investors is really important. And if it's really ugly, like, investors are just not going to look at it, because everyone, wants them to look nice. And when you present them as well, like, it has to be impactful. So yeah, I definitely think we picked up a lot of skills from all the places that we've worked. And yeah, as well with the MBA, one of the modules we did was called entrepreneurial finance. So kind of the finance side of startups, which was essentially introducing us to VCs and VC funding and how all of that works, which before going to Oxford, I had no idea. I don't think I'd even heard the term startup really before going there. So yeah, it was, I do think along the way, we've definitely picked up really useful skills and experiences that have kind of contributed to where we are now. Nice.
So, Luna, comes a little bit out of left field, this almost in the story, because nothing in your background has been healthcare so far, but then, or even teens and teen mental health and that kind of thing. So yeah, it comes a little bit out of left field. So tell me about getting the idea for Luna and what that initial idea was that you presented at the MBA.
Yeah, definitely. And completely agree. Fully left field, never had any experience with medicine or anything like that before. But the idea basically came about on this entrepreneurship project. We were a team of 5 women, and all from different places across the world. And we were discussing one night, like sort of discussing ideas for this project, but also just general chat as well. And one of the topics we sort of got onto eventually was talking about either female health issues that we were having, or our friends were having, or our sisters were starting to have. And we were all in our late 20s at the time. And the sort of consensus was that no matter in the world where we were from, even in our late 20s, we were like, why did no one tell us about this when we were younger? Like, we had friends who were being diagnosed with PCOS or endometriosis. And, there was some in the group who, didn't know what the symptoms were. Like, how do we know what we should be looking out for? And how come it's taken so long to get a diagnosis? Like, should we have said something earlier? Like, we've been through our 20s, like managing pain symptoms, managing different skin symptoms. And, it was just unanimous that we just thought, it's so strange that no one's ever taught us this before, because it's how else would you know? And, we remember so Jazz and I, remember our PSHE lessons in school. So when we were sort of 11, 12, 13 years old. And, it was so basic and so just not relevant, really, that actually it really did fail us in terms of once we'd left school and gone to university and in our 20s, and you start thinking about, your longer term sort of fertility and just managing different symptoms, that you think, like, wouldn't it have been easier if someone had just taught us this when we were younger, so we knew what we were looking out for? And so, yeah, we, did a quick scan of like the PSHE curriculum today, and shockingly, it literally hasn't changed in the sort of nearly 20 years that Jazz and I were at school. And the thing is, what's even worse now is that when we were at school, there was no such thing as social media. Like, we didn't have really anywhere to go, which was obviously part of the problem. But I think the bigger part of the problem now is that teens and preteens have somewhere to go, which is the internet, which is social media. And as we all know, it is full of misinformation, which is not only just incorrect, it's often damaging, it's toxic. You only have to look at the stats to see the sort of mental health problems that are coming out now in the younger generations, and how it correlates so nicely with the rise of social media. And you just think, TikTok, we've spoken to thousands of teenagers now, and TikTok is their number one search engine for everything. So whether it's periods or skincare or mental health or sleep or stress, anxiety, they go there first. And TikTok is anyone. Anyone can make a TikTok about periods. Anyone can make a TikTok about anxiety or mental health. And, we just, you take one look of it, which we did in our research when we started this. And there's videos, one in particular, which really gets us every time. It's so distressing, the fact that there's videos out there, if you type in things like period hacks, that tell girls that they can stop their period by taking a shot of lime juice, salt, and tagine powder. And this girl does it on camera. Like, she'll run away, she takes this shot apparently, and comes back and says it's worked. And that has literally 30 million views. And when we speak to teenagers about this video, and others in particular about weight loss and body image, when you say, what do you think of these? They're just like, it's true, isn't it? Yeah, that's right, isn't it? They believe it, because at 13 years old, why would you not believe it? Because essentially they're watching adults creating these videos, and all adults in their life up until that point have probably never really lied to them, like their parents, their guardians, their teachers. So why would someone on the internet be lying to me? And that's, where really the idea came from, because we just thought, we suffered our generation of women because of the sort of lack of information about our bodies and our health and our well-being. And we now don't want to see another generation and more suffer because of just the misinformation now that they're watching and consuming on a daily basis. And I think it's so scary, what they're learning through TikTok, which, anyone can create content about anything, and they do.
It is frightening. The sort of misinformation pandemic is so bad, and you're absolutely right. When you're from my world and our world of healthcare, I was a doctor for a few years, and ever since I've been in sort of health and technology, where regulation is still very much a part of. If you're going to create something and give it to patients, it needs to be regulated. And so my framework is always making sure everything is evidence-based and regulated. And so whenever I see this sort of thing, I have this almost visceral reaction where I am physically cringing, because it is just so damaging. And I can feel and see that it's so damaging, because you're absolutely right. It is influential. They are defined as influencers. They influence the behavior of those that watch it. And when you see things viewed 30 million times, it's not only frustrating, but it's sort of it's saddening, and it's really I find it really deflating, actually, that it's sort of because I'm also in the communication game as well. So this is my world of content, and making sure the right things are seen by the right people to influence the right actions. And it's this thing of unless we really get a handle on this, I don't quite know where this ends. And I know that I've had Vishal from YouTube on this podcast before, or from YouTube Health, and they've created the health shelf, and they're doing, approved creators and approved information to go on that health shelf and to be promoted upwards, to push misinformation downwards. And it's a strange line between that and censorship as well. And you don't want to fall into that, but how do you make sure the right information is promoted and that kind of thing? It's incredibly difficult. And it feels like to me that I've seen Luna before you've come on today, and before we've spoken. Like I've seen Luna before, and actually, one thing that I think is the answer is, I think ultimately it's brand, and I think where a trust, if a brand can build trust with a cohort of people, i.e., teenagers, if that brand has trust, and that brand is centralizing and curating certain content, then at least in the absolute ocean of stuff that is happening and content that is being created, if we can build trust between this brand and this audience, then this audience will go to this brand for their information. So the win for me seems to be this. It's not only about curating the information and resting on your laurels there. I do think the responsibility is around the brand that you create to make it trusted, and everything that you need to do as a brand to become trusted in that cohort.
Absolutely.
But I guess that's what you guys are doing. So do you want to explain what Luna practically is, what the product is, and what you guys are trying to achieve?
Yeah, absolutely. And all of the above is exactly what we are trying to do. So we have created Luna, which is the world's first digital health companion specifically for teens. So we only really service the teen age group. And how we do that is through content. So we have a section called Luna Learns, which is where our users can watch really short videos, very much TikTok style, and read short articles, but all of the content is created by our in-house team, and they are all experts, mostly medics, so mostly junior doctors, GPs, gynecologists, psychologists, but all experts. So there's no user-generated content on the platform, and we cover a range of topics. So we're not just like a period app. We cover everything from periods and hormones, which start at very much the basic, because we get so many questions in from teenagers asking about, like, when will I get my first period? What will it feel like? And these are kind of so basic questions that teenagers are being failed on. And so we cover topics such as periods and hormones, but everything from like skin and skincare, hair care, sleep, stress, mental health, exercise, nutrition, body positivity, confidence, even things like friendships and relationships, because it's all part of growing up, and they're all interlinked. So your mental health will be affected by your friendships and your relationships, which will also affect your periods and your hormones. So it's about learning from a young age how all that works, but learning in a safe and positive space, which is all the content, like I say, is created by our experts. We also have Ask Luna. So this is where we have the same amazing bunch of experts who create the content. They answer anonymous questions that come through Ask Luna. So all users can submit a question on any of these kind of topics, and we do get everything from real essays like, my friend has fallen out with me and she said this and she said that and he said that, what do I do? But all the way through to, like I said, the basics of like, what will it feel like when I get my first period? How will I know what should I do? And to date, we launched on the app stores now about 7 months ago, and we've had about 13,000 questions in so far from teens. And I know it's amazing. Like we've been told by so many people, like, won't people just run out of questions? And it's amazing how they just don't dry up. Every single day we will have, potentially up to like 100 of questions that have come in through the day and overnight. And the thing is, they're posted back on the app for everyone to see. So obviously all anonymous, but the response is there for everyone to read. So not only does that make the community feel, well, like there is this community without it being an open chat. But also it makes them feel normal. It makes them feel like, oh, I'm not weird for asking that. Like, I wanted to ask that question, but actually someone else has. So that's not weird to be thinking that. And it's amazing how many of our users say that actually reading other people's questions and answers is their favorite feature. So that's the second thing. The third thing is we have the Lunar Shop. So we've partnered with some brands who have got like specific teen products. So period care, hair care, skin care for specific discounts that we can share with our users. And then the last thing is the Lunar Tracker. So going back to our very, very, very original conversation as a group of 5, when we were talking about female health issues that we were having or our friends were having, and actually not knowing what the symptoms were and not knowing what was normal and what wasn't normal, and actually not having anywhere to track these kind of things, even if we did know, kind of thing. So we've created the Lunar Tracker, which is very simple. Obviously, there's lots of period trackers out there, but what's different about ours is that because we focus on teens, we don't mention fertility. We don't mention, this is the best time to get pregnant, like lots of apps do, menopause and things like that. We are just very much entry level, the basics. And, you come in the morning, you track how you're feeling. It's literally range of different emotions. You can track your skin, you can track what pain, if you're bleeding, and then your sleep as well. So we literally ask 5 things. And what we're trying to make our users understand is that it's really important to start doing this from a young age. So once your periods have settled and you are into more of a rhythm with them, you'll have that information then, if something looks abnormal, to go to your doctor, and you'll be empowered then to say, look, I've been tracking this for a few years now, and this is now not normal for me. Because often, we go to our doctors and that's the first thing they'll say is like, oh, go away for a few months and track, your cycle and come back when you've got that data. So we want our users from, as soon as they start their period, and even before, because you can still track your emotions and how you're feeling and understand your own triggers as soon as you get the app. So yeah, that is in a nutshell what Lunar is and what our teens can do.
I absolutely love this for so many different reasons, but I think back to my own childhood and adolescence and moving into adulthood, and one of the things I like about this is that it treats teens like adults, and not in a bad way. It treats them like adults in a good way, in that it trusts that they are going to ask questions that deserve an answer. It trusts that they are in a world where they are flooded with too much information, and this is an outlet for them to use. It empowers them about their health as well. Mm-hmm. It I suppose gets them on that journey of interacting with digital health products in a positive way as well, in that, as you say, this isn't Flow or Clue or anything like that that's going to be for later on, but this is going to tell them what they need to know. And actually, I think as more empowered teens about their health, more knowledgeable, because they're craving the knowledge, clearly, because they're seeing these misinformation things going on, but also I can remember being in the dark myself about my own health with dermatological stuff or this, that, and the other, like all the usual stuff that happens. But like, you are just in the dark, and you're in an age of so much information that is available to you in different ways through search engines and through everything else that exists. And so I think it is incredibly challenging, particularly where those searches often return the most extreme or the most this or the most that, or as you say on TikTok, could return literally anything from a misinformation perspective as well. Yeah. And so I think this feels like a really important almost movement that you'll be sort of spearheading here as one of the first through the door, if not the first through the door, of like, what are these initial digital health products, apps, etc., that get people interacting with this stuff in the right way. So I guess my question here is like, you've had 13,000 questions go through. Yes, it's early days, 7 months in, etc. But you must now be looking at a couple of different things. I'm interested in what are the genuine benefits that you're actually seeing? What metrics do you track from a user perspective of like, what are the benefits to those teens going through? Is there a benefit to them and their health at the time? Is it that they benefit by a graduation to adulthood in a better way? Or so what are those benefits there? But also I can see in the way that you've set this company up that there's almost like a funnel of sort of the free stuff into the paid stuff, and you're collecting, even from those 13,000 questions, some really valuable data on what teens are thinking, feeling, asking as well. And there's clearly some data from the tracking as well that can play later down the line. So I guess my two questions are, what are the benefits to the users? And I guess from a business perspective, what's the win there? Like, what's the future there for you? How are you setting this up and why?
Yeah, really, two really good questions. And the first one, I suppose the benefit, I think for that, I would just like urge people and urge everyone to check out our App Store reviews. Like, what I find amazing is that this is a generation which obviously for a lot of them, they're digital natives, essentially. They were born with smartphones in their hands, basically. And actually putting writing a long essay about why they love Luna is not what you'd expect of them. But honestly, if you just look at some of the App Store reviews, we've had reviews and messages in saying like, this app has changed my life. Like, I now have somewhere to go to speak and understand myself from both a mental health perspective. So the reason why we started, because the platform currently is really aimed at girls and non-binary teens, like anyone who menstruates, essentially. And that's not to say we don't have boys on the platform as well, but the content is very much geared towards them. And the reason why we started with that was obviously our own personal experience, being 5 women when we first came up with the idea, but also the stats that show girls and non-binary teens are 3 times more likely by the age of 18 to suffer from a severe mental health issue compared to their male counterparts. And, that it is just incredible, like those stats. And I think that combined with social media and the pressures and the body image and even COVID, I think has exacerbated that so much that actually if we can, and I know we do, are helping these teens in various ways of educating them. So, we've had messages in saying PSHE at school doesn't cover any of this, like, thank you so much. But also just the confidence aspect, like body confidence, body positivity, understanding that like, what they're thinking is even normal, and just normalizing, things like periods and sex and hormones, which are the kind of topics at that age which are cringe. Like, everyone remembers it. Like, they're not the kind of topics that, were openly talked about. And we want to be that sort of safe and positive space which our users can just learn in their own time and have somewhere where they need to ask these questions. So yeah, in terms of like how we measure our success is very much that. It's like the positive impact that we're creating on these users. And for us personally, I obviously love reading the App Store reviews, but we also have in the app a feedback box where we just say to users, like, send us your feedback. Like, often they'll be finding bugs for us, but anything else, like, it will be, request for new content. But lots of times it's just very positive feedback saying how much, they love the app, and I've only just found this app, but I wish I'd had it years ago. Like, I love it so much. And it's connected to one of our Slack channels. And honestly, it's just like popping off, like literally all day, every day, which is amazing. Like, we have a sort of real direct line of communication with these teens, and we use that then to kind of constantly improve the features and add new features, add new content to the app. So I really do hope, like you said, it is the sort of start of this movement, because I think there's obviously benefits society wide and to this sort of community at large, but from a business point of view as well, like, we went to business school, Jazz and I, we're not a charity and we're not a not-for-profit. Like, we also know that this is a really untapped space, and there's money to be made, and there is there is a real business here, and obviously we've got investors now who believe in us and back us as well, and they can see that. So the future for us is huge. I think the potential is really there, because as you said, this space, this audience is really untapped, and I think the future benefits of, exactly as you say, sort of attracting an audience at this age, for a business will kind of they reap the benefits in the long term. And we will always be an app focused on teens and teen well-being, teen health, everything to do with being a teenager. But in the future, we would obviously love to help parents as well. Like, we've had so many parents come up to us and say, basically, when I had my child as a baby, there was so much support out there for me. Like, there was baby classes, there was visits from the midwife and the doctors, and there was books and all of this. But now my baby is a teenager, and it's a very different ball game, and I have absolutely no idea what they're doing. I'm so worried for them being on the internet. Like, there's no manual for having baby, but there's a lot more help out there, and there are so many parents out there that are crying out for help. And I really do think we've got 25,000 downloads now of the app, and that is a real source of information about teenagers and what they're thinking, what they're feeling, and also how they want to speak to their parents on these topics. Because going back to the sort of awkwardness factor, they want to talk to their parents, but it's like, how do you approach them? We get so many questions in saying, how should I ask my mum about this? Like, can you give me some tips on asking my parents about that? And, I think there's definitely something there in the future as well for Luna to really help parents with navigate this kind of new age of having a teenager. Because when my mum and dad, were looking after me as a teenager, they obviously didn't have to deal with the Snapchats and the TikToks of the world. Whereas as soon as you send your child to secondary school, even if you as a parent haven't given them a smartphone, they will have access to one in the playground and have access to the whole of the internet. And I know obviously lots of parents think that they won't and they'll be shielded by it. But as soon as they get to the playground in secondary school, it is just open to everything. And I think lots of parents are worried about that, and I can totally understand why, because I would be as well.
So it's information and it's support, isn't it? And you've essentially just declared that entire teen market. And I know you're obviously starting female non-binary to begin with, but clearly your market size is absolutely enormous, and you're in the business of delivering quality information and also essentially upselling support, and even upselling support, because of the questions element is obviously just there for everyone, but essentially giving support. Where do your revenues come from?
Good question. At the moment, it's just the shop. So the commission that we can earn on the affiliate links, because we are a free app, and we launched intentionally as a free app because firstly, we wanted to know that people were going to use this, people were going to download it, and actually not just download it and then maybe open it once and never come back to it. Whereas we've know from our retention rates and daily active users and all of that, that they are using it and they're loving it. So, we're super glad that we started as a free app, and that was always the intention. And then the intention was always to turn on subscription, as you have to do with, all of these things, especially in the app world. And so we will be turning that on later this year. 2023, later this year, end of Q3. And that will be, obviously targeting parents essentially to pay for the premium version of it. So it's obviously like a tried and tested model, and we have to do it as well because, obviously there'll be a lot of people that say oh, it was a free app, like why can't I still keep using Luna for free? And at the end of the day, everyone costs money. Obviously, people that, the tech team, very expensive. The medics, we pay all of our medics for the content they create, the questions that they answer. And yeah, you can't just run on air forever, I'm afraid. So yeah, we'll be turning on like a nominal subscription.
Well, it's an exchange. It's an exchange of value, isn't it?
Absolutely. If you think like parents pay for Spotify, Netflix, all of the above, all of those kind of apps. So, and obviously it was not going to be anywhere near the kind of whatever Netflix is now, $10.99 or whatever it is, that kind of monthly subscription. It will be, as affordable and accessible as possible. So, we can get Luna into the hands as many teenagers across the world as possible.
Yeah, I can also see a world with this where when you're in that game of addressing a market that size and you're essentially capturing the attention of that many people, there is for me partly this element of there's nothing stopping you translating into every language on earth and capturing every teenager on earth as well. Like the market size is just so unbelievably large. But when you get across a certain critical mass, I guess, the business models can be so wildly broad and all over the place. They can be different for different regions, different countries, different. We're in an era, and this is partly the downfall of what we've already talked about, which is that we're in an attention economy, and actually where the business model of a free TikTok app means that you can capture those teens for free and you are basically a search engine with user-generated content that costs you nothing, and all of a sudden that's how people are getting their information. Actually, there probably comes a point where you think, well, we could end up competing with that, because at the end of the day, like if we can get the ad revenue that they can get, or whatever revenue that they get on all their various models, like there's nothing stopping you changing your mind. It's the superpower of every entrepreneur to change their mind and all the rest of it for lots of different things. And so, yes, while that might be the model now for various reasons, there's nothing stopping you when you've translated into 50 languages and acquired a few million users that you're like, well, hey, we can actually go toe to toe with them here by going free and doing something completely different in terms of our business model, because we've got the numbers.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, there's lots of different things that this opens up to. But I guess my question related to that is the fact that, TikTok is free, and they aren't regulating or stopping the types of content that can deliver misinformation, and therefore it can go very far. Given your experience in this field, with what that's doing for mental health of teens and teens' relationship with their own health and things like that, what do you see as the role of big tech right now? What do you see the role of TikTok as a platform, or if you look at what YouTube are doing with everything that they're doing far more proactively, or even
definitely
Twitter and X and Facebook, or like Instagram, like what do you see the role of big tech is, or the responsibility of big tech at the moment?
I personally think they do need to be held account, and I totally get it that they are businesses. This is a capitalist society and they're in it to make money, and I completely get that. But I think it comes with a big caveat of making money from basically, like you said, with the algorithms that these platforms use, like the fact that they're sending users into often quite dark places and they are then profiting off that. I personally don't think that is responsible business, and I think you can have both. I do think, and I really hope that Luna will be the kind of, like you say, sort of movement, but also like one of the tech companies that do show that you can have both, like profit but also a purpose, and not be exploiting people for that fact. Because to me it feels like some of these big tech platforms, it is exploitation in a way, because they are allowing content on the platform which is dangerous. Like, it's not even just incorrect, like, it's often dangerous. And then, like you say, making money off the back of the ad revenue from that. And to me, it just doesn't sit well. Like, I just think it feels disingenuous, and it just shouldn't be allowed. And I really do think places like YouTube, where they are making a conscious effort with things, as like you said before, the health shelf, and making content that is verified and accurate more readily available than the rubbish that isn't. That, for me, feels like the way to go. And they are showing then that you can get ad revenue. They make so much every year, but they're doing it in a way that is positive for everyone involved. And often the people that are suffering the most are the vulnerable populations. And in this instance, especially with TikTok, it is the younger generation. And I often think that they don't realize themselves the damage that is potentially causing, especially in the longer term, because at the time they're enjoying it, they're seeing funny cat videos, but then every so often, if the algorithm picks up that you've potentially searched weight loss tips or something like that, you get thrown a curveball, and then the sort of spiral into, those kind of doom scrolling of various videos happens. And yeah, I do personally think there is a real responsibility of these companies, and they were the ones that introduced this to our world, and not even that long ago. So I think they have to be accountable for the longer term ramifications of it. It's not down to anyone else. Like, it shouldn't have to fall on the part of the consumer, because ultimately it wasn't the consumer that put them there in the first place, if you see what I mean. So I'd be interested to see where these platforms go.
Yeah, definitely. Because it's not the fault of the consumer who is searching in good faith for an answer to a health query to be then fed something that is misinformation. Because the user, in your example, the teen that is searching for weight loss is searching that in good faith, but it's not complex enough to realize the age of the person, the query itself, even that doesn't match up, and what the person needs isn't directly actually what they're searching for. They need some other type of help, because you shouldn't be searching for that sort of stuff at that certain age if you're a certain cohort or whatever. And that's the problem. There's so much complexity when it comes to healthcare and healthcare content, which is why that I do admire what they are trying to do at YouTube and are doing at YouTube.
Same.
Because it's self-driven. And I think that's the thing, when you've got a big tech platform that isn't being held to account by any regulator. It's interesting, because those that then do take it upon themselves to behave in the right way with the integrity needed to deliver what's actually most useful for the principle rather than the profit. In my view, that's actually brand. You're basically just growing brand in the right way. You're associating your brand with the right principles and the right messages and doing the right thing, which I would always hope is the long-term play and the good long-term decision of any business to put purpose over profit. You would hope that that doing the right thing leads to that. But even on a very practical level, it's meant that I've mentioned YouTube twice, 3 times in this conversation because of what they're doing. And therefore the people that listen know that is what they are doing over other platforms that are not, and that kind of thing. And so I think it does overall and over time have those benefits, and I would only hope that it does so. My next question before I start letting you go is, whereabouts are you guys right now as a business in terms of, you mentioned daily active users and weekly active users, that type of thing. I mean, you don't have to be too specific with that sort of stuff, but whereabouts are you now? Where are you in your fundraising journey? Where are you with all of those features that you mentioned and anything new coming out? And talk to me about where you're at now and what the future looks like for Luna.
Yeah, so it is a really busy time. I was catch my reflection in this video, and I was like, wow, my eyes look tired. And I think that is just the life of a founder and co-founder really is that, yeah, it's a super busy time because we are sort of mid fundraise. We are well, hopefully wrapping it up this month, which would be ideal. But the thing is with startups, it feels like you're always fundraising. So no matter, once we finish this one, get all the cash in the bank, I'm sure we'll have to start thinking about the next one as well. But that's, a 2024 problem, hopefully. So yeah, we're just wrapping up a fundraise that we're doing at the moment, which is gone really well. Like, we're really pleased with the progress that we've made, and really great that a lot of our original angels who backed us last year, because we did another fundraise last year, are backing us again. So to us, that was really like a big moment, because it feels like, they really do believe in us as founders, and the business as well. So yeah, we're fundraising at the moment, soon to be wrapped up. And the aim really of that fundraise is to kind of use that for Luna 2.0, as we sort of call internally. So we have obviously the app on the App Store, and it's very much like our MVP, which we've been adding new features to ever since. But now the plan towards the end of the year and into 2024 is to kind of work on Luna 2.0. And as I alluded to earlier, the subscription element of it will be coming in. But along with that, there'll be some really cool new features as well. One of them is actually launching tomorrow, which I personally am really excited about, because I feel like this is a feature that, well, when I was that age, would have absolutely loved, but also when speaking to our users, it's highly, highly requested, and they get so excited about it. And it's basically, we're calling it a U review. So every month, our users will get a personalized insight into their month on Luna. So there's a very popular streaming platform that does it once a year into your music listening choices.
Spotify, yeah. Other ones are available.
Yeah, that's the one. And we have basically taken the tracker, the questions asked, everything to do with Luna, and we've packaged it up. So actually, it will be a monthly insight into, how you've been feeling, what's triggered you, how many days you were bleeding, like what's your skin been like, and actually playing back full data and insights to our users. So instead of just tracking, saying, oh, today I felt happy, today I felt happy, today I felt sad, at the end of each month, you'll then be told, this is how many times you felt sad, and these were the reasons, and here's some recommended things that we think will help you to feel maybe a little less sad next month. So yeah, I'm super excited about it, because I think it's one of those things that we're going to keep evolving and keep adding new insights to, based on what our users feedback to us. But and it's the first time we're going to be like recommending content to our users, and for us that's huge, because at the moment it is just, we publish new content every day, but at the moment it is just a whole catalog of content, whereas now, based on your activity on Luna, you'll have recommended content for you. So if you have been tracking, like I say, that you've been feeling really sad or anxious for the majority of the month, we'll be able to recommend you Luna content that, helps to conquer that, which, yeah, I'm super excited about, and we are launching tomorrow. So fingers crossed that all goes well. But yeah, the main thing really is working on that Luna 2.0, ready for, the subscription element to land later this year.
I think that's great. I really like that because of what you said. It's actionable advice, and the recommended content side of things, you're sort of paying back the individual for the time they have taken to enter in all of that stuff by giving them back something that is clearly curated and actually teaches them something about themselves. Because, hey, we all know that part of being a teenager and part of just life is actually just continually learning about yourself and trying to quantify all this stuff. It took me 30 years to realize that actually, hey, having a beer after work actually knocks off my mental health quite significantly for like a week afterwards. And it only sort of clicks afterwards of like, oh, maybe alcohol is actually really terrible for me as an individual. And like, you go through your entire 20s just like not blissfully unaware of that. And actually, having those individuals having taken the time to input their mood and input all of these different things to then learn something about themselves that can then empower them to control their health better, make them feel better as individuals, both from a physical, emotional, mental health perspective, is incredible. And the fact that they're learning that early is wonderful, because it is such a difficult time in life, as we all know. So I think it's great. So Jo, listen, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on.
Oh, no, it's been brilliant. I really enjoyed the conversation.
No, me too. If people want to learn more about Luna, if they want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do so?
Good question. We are across the majority of the social platforms. So you can find us, but yeah, obviously you can find us on Instagram at We Are Luna App, same with TikTok. And me personally, my LinkedIn is always open. So yeah, just Jo Goodall on LinkedIn. What else have we got? I think that's the main ones, isn't it?
Cool. You got to be competing for that space against the misinformation, haven't you? But yeah, Jo, I'll say it's been a pleasure. I do encourage everybody to have a look at this. If you've got kids, if you're worried about what they're going to be accessing online and you want to give them space to learn new things, ask questions and track how they feel, which I'm reading directly from your website, this is the best place to do so. So Jo, thank you.